You know, bass anglers have literally hundreds of baits to choose from. A successful day out in the water often hinges on picking the right bait for the right situation. Unfortunately, it's easy for an angler to make the wrong choice when they don't fully understand the nuances of rigging and presentations. In this Beyond the Bait video series powered by our friends at Streamlight, I'm going to offer a uniquely technical focus on the best baits for bass fishing. Along the way, I'll try to dispel many of the wives' tales, myths, and misnomers associated with bass fishing. Hi, I'm Dr. Todd Kuhn, editor in Game & Fish magazine. Come along as I attempt to help you put more fish in the boat. Now let's get to it. When selecting the right rod, there's four very, very important numbers. And interestingly enough, the manufacturers gives you these numbers. They provide them for you so you can select the right rod for the bait you're using. The first number is the length, the rod's overall length. The second number is the power of the action, how the flexure in the rod. The third number is line class, or the line range. And the fourth number is lure weight. In other words, what bait weight goes with that rod. Let me go through each one of those and tell you how they help you select the right rod for the bait you're using. The first number I talked about was rod length. In other words, the overall length of the rod. Is it a 7.3? Is it a 6.2? Is it a 7 foot? Is it a 6.11? That matters. Why that matters is, think of a rod as a lever. It's how you cast your bait. The longer the lever, the longer you can throw a bait because the longer the lever. So when you're fishing a finesse bait, for instance, the longer the rod, the less control. The shorter the rod, the more control. So if I'm fishing a finesse bait, something that I want to work with, say a shaky head, with a lot of action, very, very precision presentation, I don't want to use a long rod because I can't manipulate that bait close to my hand. The longer the lever, the less mechanical advantage you have on the rod. So a finesse bait, shorter rod, short lever, more finesse, more manipulation, mechanical manipulation with the hand. Longer the rod, the less you have the ability to impart a precision presentation with the rod. That covers length. The second number that we care about is power, or action in the rod. Think of a rod as a spring. A heavy spring does a lot of work. A light spring does very little work. Think of a heavy rod as a heavy spring. When you set the hook, that rod or that spring does a lot of work. It sets big hook diameters, heavy gauge hooks. A light rod or light spring does very little work. So that's how you should think of action on a rod. Match the spring tension, the strength of the rod, to the size gauge hook and the line you're using, and the type of presentation. Is it a power presentation? Heavy action. Is it a finesse presentation? Light spring, light action. That's how you match power and action to your bait. The third number that matters is line class or line weight. It's printed on the rod. It'll say 8 to 12, 14 to 20. That's the line weight that the manufacturer recommends for that rod, for that action and that length. They're telling you what line class to use. The heavier the rod, the heavier the line class is going to be, because a heavy rod fishes heavy line, sets heavy hooks with heavy line. For light line, you want to use a light spring or a light action rod because you're using light line. If you're using a heavy rod with light line, little hooks, when you set the hook, there's too much power. You're going to pull the bait away from the fish. You're not going to set the hook. So match the rod poundage rating to the line you're using and the type of bait that you're using in the presentation. It's that simple. The fourth number that matters when selecting a rod is the lure weight. Once again, it's printed on the rod. It'll say 1/4 ounce to 3/8 ounce, half to 1. It's on the rod. It's the manufacturer's rating for that rod, for that lure weight, for the action, for the length, for the line class. So you want to match the line weight, the rod power, the rod length, and the lure weight. Put those all together and you've got the right rod for the right technique. This is a good example of a crankbait rod. It's a 7-foot medium action rod that's great for throwing light crankbaits with light gauge hooks. It's long enough at 7 feet to get long casts, but yet has enough flexure at a medium action to keep from pulling the bait out of a fish's mouth. This is my large topwater rod. It's a 7-foot medium action rod. At 7 feet, it'll make long casts with a big bait, yet it has enough backbone here in the butt section to set these larger hooks. This is a 6'10" Mike Iaconelli designed finesse rod. It's rated for 4 to 10 pound test line and really small lures, 3/32 to a ½ ounce. It's great for light line tactics. As you can see, this Senko style bait that's on here for wacky rigging. It has a great tip for working it with precision and yet enough backbone to set the hook. Hey, thanks for joining us on this episode of Beyond the Baits, powered by Streamlight. I hope some of the information contained in this video will help you become a better bass fisherman. For more information about bass fishing and other outdoor topics, join us at gameandfishmag.com or pick up a copy of Game and Fish on a local newsstand near you.